The last ember of sunlight glinted off Lucia Alvarez's tears as she frantically wiped them away, refusing to let the townspeople of Stillwater Creek see her weakness. The year was 1875, and the Wyoming Territory offered little comfort to a young Mexican widow with two small children clinging to her skirts. She had come too far, survived too much to break now, even as the shopkeeper's words still rang in her ears. "We don't serve your kind here. Take your gibberish elsewhere." Lucia clutched her children's hands tighter as they walked away from the general store, 7-year-old Miguel and 5-year-old Isabella both silent, having learned early that drawing attention only brought trouble. 3 months in this town had taught them harsh lessons about being outsiders. "Mama, I'm hungry," Isabella whispered in Spanish, her voice barely audible. "I know, my corazon. We will find something," Lucia replied softly in her native tongue, though she had no idea how to fulfill that promise. The money she earned doing laundry for the hotel barely covered the rent for their tiny room behind the livery stable. As they rounded the corner, Lucia nearly collided with a tall figure. She stumbled back, apologies tumbling from her lips in a mixture of Spanish and broken English. "Careful there," came a deep voice as strong hands steadied her shoulders. Lucia looked up into the weathered face of a man she'd seen around town, one of the ranchers, who occasionally brought cattle to the railhead. His clothes were dust-covered but of good quality, his gray eyes kind beneath the brim of his worn Stetson. "I am sorry," she managed in her heavily accented English. "I did not see." "No harm done, madam," he replied, then looked down at the children. "Even into you little ones as well." Miguel stepped protectively closer to his mother while Isabella peered curiously at the stranger. "I'm Cole Kincaid," he said, extending a hand. "Own the Double K Ranch about 10 miles out." "Lucia Alvarez," she replied, hesitantly accepting his handshake. "These are my children, Miguel and Isabella." Cole nodded politely, but his attention was drawn to the redness around her eyes. "Everything all right, Mrs. Alvarez?" Before she could answer, a group of local men exited the saloon across the street, their loud voices carrying in the evening air. "Hey, look, it's the Mexican laundry woman. Why don't you go back where you came from?" one called out, slurring his words. Lucia stiffened, keeping her eyes fixed on the ground, hoping they would lose interest if ignored. She felt Cole straighten beside her, his posture shifting. "Gentlemen," he called out, his voice carrying a quiet authority that made the men pause. "I believe you've had enough for one evening. Best head home now." Something in his tone made the group reconsider. After a few muttered comments, they continued down the street. "Thank you," Lucia said quietly after they'd gone, "but I am used to it." Cole's expression darkened. "You shouldn't have to be." A rumble from Miguel's stomach broke the moment, and Lucia felt her face flush with embarrassment. "Have you folks eaten?" Cole asked, his tone casual as if asking about the weather. "We were just going to." Lucia began, but had no lie ready to complete the sentence. "I was about to get some supper at the hotel restaurant," Cole said. "Would be mighty pleased if you join me. They make a fine beef stew on Tuesdays." Pride made Lucia want to refuse, but the hopeful looks on her children's faces made that impossible. "That is very kind, Mr. Kincaid, but we cannot accept 'please call me Cole,'" he interrupted gently. "And I insist. It gets lonely eating by myself all the time." That evening marked the first time in months that Lucia and her children went to bed with full stomachs. Throughout the meal, Cole had been respectful, asking simple questions about how long they'd been in Wyoming, careful not to pry too deeply when Lucia grew hesitant discussing her late husband. What struck her most was how he spoke to Miguel and Isabella with the same dignity he offered adults. When Isabella accidentally knocked over her water glass, he simply helped clean it up without a single harsh word. As weeks passed, Cole found reasons to be in town more frequently than his ranch business required. He would appear at the hotel where Lucia worked, often bringing small treats for the children, a piece of rock candy or a wooden toy he'd carved himself. Each visit, he made a point of speaking directly to Miguel and Isabella, encouraging them to respond in English but never mocking when they stumbled over words. One particularly hot afternoon in July, Lucia was hanging laundry behind the hotel when she heard Cole's voice approaching with her children. They had taken to following him around town whenever he visited, like ducklings after their mother. "That's right, Isabella," he was saying. "The word is beautiful, not bootiful, try again." "Bow tie full," Isabella repeated carefully. "Perfect," Cole exclaimed, genuine pride in his voice. "Now you try, Miguel." "Beautiful," Miguel said confidently. "You two are learning faster than I learned Spanish, that's for sure," Cole laughed. Lucia felt her heart warm at the scene. No one else in town had shown such patience with her children. "Mr. Cole," Miguel asked, "why do people laugh when Mama talks?" Lucia froze, her hands stilling on the wet sheet she was hanging. She hadn't realized Miguel had noticed the snickers and mocking imitations. Cole knelt down to meet Miguel's eyes. "Because some people fear what's different, son. And when people are afraid, they sometimes act cruel instead of brave." "Is Mama's talking wrong?" Isabella asked, her small face serious. "No," Cole answered firmly. "Your mama speaks 2 languages. Most folks in this town only know one. That makes her smarter than them, not the other way around." Tears pricked at Lucia's eyes as she listened. No one had defended her like this before. Later that evening, after the children were asleep on their pallet in the corner of their tiny room, Lucia sat mending by candlelight when a soft knock came at the door. She opened it to find Cole standing there, hat in hand. "I hope it's not too late to call, Mrs. Alvarez. Please, you must call me Lucia," she said, stepping aside to let him enter the humble space. "I wanted to bring this by," he said, holding out a book. "It's stories for children in English. Thought it might help Miguel and Isabella." Lucia took the book, running her fingers over its leather cover. "This is very thoughtful, but I cannot read English well enough to teach them." "I could help," Cole offered. "Could come by a few evenings a week if that wouldn't be improper." The offer hung between them, fraught with meaning beyond the simple words. "The town already talks," Lucia said softly, "about why a respected rancher spends time with a Mexican widow." "Let them talk," Cole replied. "I've never much cared what this town thinks." Over the following weeks, their evening reading sessions became a cherished routine. Cole would arrive after supper, and they would sit around the small table, taking turns reading aloud from the book of stories. The children soaked up the new words like parched earth absorbing rain. One evening in late August, as Cole was preparing to leave, Lucia walked him to the door. "I never thanked you properly," she said, "for being kind to us when no one else would." "No thanks needed," Cole replied. "Your children are bright as new pennies. It's a pleasure watching them learn." A commotion from the street drew their attention. Through the window, they could see a crowd gathering at the livery stable across the way. The owner, Mr. Peterson, was arguing loudly with a well-dressed man Lucia didn't recognize. "Stay here," Cole said, stepping outside to investigate. Lucia couldn't help but follow to the doorway, keeping the children behind her. The shouting grew louder as more townspeople joined the scene. "You can't just come in here and buy everything," Peterson was yelling. "I have the paperwork right here," the stranger responded, waving documents. "The railroad's coming through and I've purchased the rights to this entire block. You've got 1 month to clear out." Lucia felt her blood run cold. Her room behind the livery was the only home they had, if the stable was demolished for the railroad. Cole returned to her side, his expression grim. "It's Harlan Sheffield," he explained quietly. "Railroad investor from Chicago. Seems he's bought up half the town for the new line coming through." "My room," Lucia whispered. "I know," Cole said. "Don't worry, we'll figure something out." The following morning, Lucia was summoned to the hotel manager's office, where she received the news she dreaded. With the coming railroad construction, the hotel would be expanding, and they would no longer require a laundress. They were bringing in new washing machines from back east. 2 blows in as many days left Lucia reeling. That evening, she couldn't hide her distress from Cole when he arrived for their reading session. "They fired me," she admitted after the children were engrossed in practicing their letters, and with the livery being torn down. She trailed off, unable to finish. Cole was quiet for a long moment, then said, "I've been meaning to ask you something, but the timing never seemed right." He took a deep breath. "My housekeeper left last month to marry a man in Cheyenne. The house has been in a sorry state since then. I could use help, and there's a small cabin on the property where you and the children could live." Lucia stared at him, uncertain how to respond to what sounded dangerously close to charity. Reading her expression, Cole continued, "It would be a proper job, Lucia, with fair wages. And the children would have space to run and play instead of being cooped up in town where folks are unkind." "I cannot accept such, it's not charity," Cole interrupted gently. "Truth is, I need the help as much as you need the work. And—" He hesitated, then finished softly, "I've grown fond of you all." 2 days later, Lucia and her children climbed into Cole's wagon, their few possessions packed in a single trunk. As they left Stillwater Creek behind, Lucia felt equal measures of trepidation and hope blooming in her chest. The Double K Ranch sprawled across a verdant valley with mountains rising in the distance. The main house was modest but well built, with a wide porch wrapping around 3 sides. The promised cabin sat 100 yards away, its fresh coat of whitewash gleaming in the afternoon sun. "Cole fix it for us?" Isabella asked as they approached. "Yes, sweetheart," Lucia answered, having watched him work late into the night for 2 days straight to make the cabin habitable. "Mr. Cole made it ready just for us." Life at the Double K quickly fell into a rhythm. Lucia kept the main house in order, cooked meals, and tended to the mending, while the children flourished in the open spaces, gradually losing the wariness that had marked their faces in town. Cole employed several ranch hands, all of whom treated Lucia and her children with the same respect their boss showed. There was Manuel, a Mexican vaquero who had been with Cole for years, Thomas, a former slave from Georgia who managed the horses, and 2 younger men, brothers named James and William, who handled the cattle. During the day, Cole taught Miguel to ride on a gentle mare, while Isabella collected eggs from the henhouse as if each one was a precious jewel. In the evenings, they would gather in the main house for supper, followed by reading lessons that now included Lucia as well. As autumn painted the surrounding hills in golds and reds, Lucia found herself watching Cole when he wasn't looking the way his hands moved as he worked, how his eyes crinkled when he laughed at the children's jokes, the gentle authority he commanded without ever raising his voice. One crisp October evening, after the children had been put to bed in the cabin, Lucia returned to the main house to finish some mending. Cole sat by the fire, working on the ranch accounts. "The children are changing," Lucia observed, breaking the comfortable silence. Miguel smiles now. "Isabella sings again. I had forgotten she used to sing." Cole looked up, a soft expression crossing his face. "They're good kids, smart too." "It is because of you," Lucia said, setting down her sewing. "You have shown them kindness when others showed only contempt." "Any decent person would have done the same," Cole replied, though the flush creeping up his neck belied his modest words. "No," Lucia said firmly, "not any person. Only a good man, a man with a good heart." Their eyes met across the room, and something unspoken passed between them. "Lucia," Cole began, then hesitated. "I want you to know that you and the children can stay here as long as you wish, regardless of anything else." "Regardless of what?" she asked, her heart beating faster. Cole set aside his ledger and moved to sit beside her on the sofa. "Regardless of how I might feel about you, I don't want you to think your position here depends on anything personal between us." Lucia's breath caught. "And how do you feel?" "I reckon I've been falling in love with you since the first time I saw you stand up straight after that shopkeeper turned you away," Cole admitted, his voice low. "You had such dignity, such strength, but I don't want to presume." Lucia placed her hand over his. "You have given us a home, Cole. You have given my children hope and me." She paused, finding the right English words. "You have given me reason to believe in good men again." Their first kiss was gentle, tentative, a question rather than a demand. When they parted, Cole's eyes searched hers. "I want to do this proper, Lucia. Court you like you deserve, if that's something you might want to." Lucia smiled, feeling lighter than she had in years. "I would like that very much." Throughout that winter, their courtship blossomed like a hothouse flower protected from the harsh Wyoming cold. Cole brought small gifts: a woolen shawl, a Spanish-language book he'd ordered from Denver, hair ribbons for Isabella. But more precious were the moments teaching her to shoot a rifle for protection when he was away, sitting together by the fire after the children were asleep, his patient listening as she shared stories of her childhood in Mexico. Christmas brought the first snow, transforming the ranch into a wonderland that had the children squealing with delight. Cole surprised them with presents carefully wrapped in brown paper: a wooden train for Miguel, a cloth doll with real glass eyes for Isabella, and for Lucia, a silver locket containing miniature portraits of her children that he'd commissioned from a traveling photographer. "How did you arrange this?" she asked, tears filling her eyes as she opened the precious gift. "Had them sit for the photos when we went to town last month," Cole explained, looking pleased at her reaction. "Told them it was a secret mission." "It is the most beautiful thing anyone has ever given me," Lucia whispered, clasping the locket around her neck. That evening, after a feast that combined Lucia's traditional Mexican dishes with Cole's American favorites, they sat before the fireplace while snow fell silently outside. The children played on the rug with their new toys, occasionally breaking into Spanish when excitement overtook them. "They still speak Spanish when they're excited," Cole observed, smiling as he watched them. "Yes," Lucia said, a note of sadness entering her voice. "I worry sometimes." In town, they were learning to be ashamed of it, of our language, our ways. "That won't happen here," Cole assured her. "A person's roots matter. Your language is part of who you are, who they are." Lucia looked at him thoughtfully. "When I first came to this country, I tried so hard to speak perfect English. I thought if I could just sound like everyone else, people would accept us. And now I know better. Some people will never accept what is different, no matter how we try to change ourselves." Cole took her hand. "When I was younger, I traveled down to Texas, worked alongside Mexican vaqueros who taught me more about cattle than any American cowboy. Best horsemen I ever saw. They were proud of their heritage, and rightly so." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the children play. Finally, Lucia gave voice to a worry that had been growing since their relationship deepened. If someday we were to marry," she said carefully, "people would talk. Your friends, your business associates, they might not approve of you choosing a Mexican woman." Cole turned to face her fully. "First off, anyone who judged me for loving you isn't my friend. Second, I don't give a damn what anyone thinks except you and those two little ones over there." "The children," Lucia murmured. "They have faced so much cruelty already." "Which is why they need to be proud of who they are," Cole said firmly. "All of who they are." Spring came early that year, bringing with it renewal in more ways than one. Cole proposed on a hillside covered in wildflowers, Miguel and Isabella standing nearby as witnesses, both children solemn with the importance of the moment. "I love you, Lucia Alvarez," he said, kneeling before her. "I love your strength, your kindness, your fierce devotion to your children. I love the way you sing when you think no one's listening, and how you still pray every night even after all you've been through. I want to build a life with you if you'll have me." "Yes," Lucia answered through happy tears. "Yes, with all my heart." The wedding was planned for June. A simple ceremony at the ranch with only a few guests, Cole's ranch hands and their families, and the kindly Reverend Matthews from a neighboring settlement who had never shown Lucia anything but respect. 2 weeks before the wedding, Cole needed to travel to Cheyenne on business, taking Manuel with him to help drive back new breeding stock for the ranch. It would be Lucia's first time alone at the Double K, but with Thomas and the other hands nearby, she felt safe. On the third day of Cole's absence, Lucia was hanging laundry when she heard horses approaching. Looking up, She saw 3 riders she recognized from Stillwater Creek, the same men who had harassed her that first evening when she met Cole. Thomas emerged from the barn, shotgun in hand, positioning himself between Lucia and the approaching men. "Afternoon," the leader said, ignoring Thomas and addressing Lucia directly. "We heard Kincaid's getting hitched to a Mexican, came to see if it was true." "Mr. Kincaid isn't here," Thomas said firmly, "and you gentlemen are trespassing," the man sneered. "Taking orders from a Negro now, this ranch is going to the dogs." "You need to leave," Lucia said, stepping forward despite her fear. "Now, look at that," another rider laughed. "She's giving orders too. Hey, sweet thing, say something in Mexican, we want to hear that funny accent." Thomas raised his shotgun slightly. "Last warning, gentlemen. The tension might have escalated further if not for the sound of approaching hooves." All turned to see William and James riding in fast from the pasture, rifles ready. Outnumbered and outgunned, the intruders muttered threats but ultimately turned their horses and rode away. That night, Lucia couldn't sleep, her mind racing with fears for the future. What kind of life would she and Cole have if people couldn't accept them? What about her children? Would they always face such hatred? When Cole returned 2 days later, she told him about the incident. "I'm sorry I wasn't here," he said, anger flashing in his eyes. "Those cowards wouldn't have dared come if I had been." "That is what worries me," Lucia admitted. "I do not want to be the reason you have trouble. Perhaps we are moving too quickly with this wedding." Cole studied her face. "Is that what you want, to postpone?" "No," Lucia said truthfully. "But I fear what our life will be. The children." "The children need to see that love can overcome hate," Cole said gently. "That standing together against ignorance is the only way forward." The next morning, Lucia was preparing breakfast when Isabella ran inside, excited about something happening in the yard. Following her daughter outside, Lucia found Cole gathering all the ranch hands. "What is going on?" she asked. "Just having a little meeting," Cole replied with a mysterious smile. "Thought you and the children might want to join us." Once everyone was assembled, Cole cleared his throat. "Most of you know that in 2 weeks, Lucia and I are getting married. What you might not know is that before I met her, I was just a lonely rancher with a big empty house and not much purpose beyond the next cattle drive." He looked at Lucia, his eyes soft. "She and these 2 amazing children have brought life and laughter back to this place. But there's something else they've brought that I want to acknowledge." Cole then surprised everyone by continuing in halting but determined Spanish. The sentences were simple, clearly rehearsed, but the effort behind them was unmistakable. Manuel broke into a wide grin while Lucia's hands flew to her mouth in astonishment. Switching back to English, Cole explained, "Manuel's been teaching me. I'm not very good yet, but I'm learning. You see, when Miguel and Isabella are grown, I want them to be proud of their Mexican heritage and their American home. I want them to know that both languages, both cultures, have value." He walked over to Lucia and took her hands. "Someone once told me that the best thing about America is not that we all become the same, but that we bring different gifts to make something new together." Tears streamed down Lucia's face as Cole knelt before her children. "Miguel, Isabella," he said seriously, "would you do me the honor of becoming my children when I marry your mama? And would you help teach me Spanish so that one day, if God blesses us with more little ones, they can speak like both of us?" Isabella threw her arms around Cole's neck while Miguel nodded, his own eyes suspiciously bright. The wedding day dawned clear and perfect. Lucia wore a dress of cream-colored silk that Cole had ordered from Denver, with red embroidery that honored her Mexican heritage. Isabella walked ahead, scattering wildflower petals while Miguel proudly carried the rings. As they exchanged vows beneath an arch of roses and mountain laurel, Lucia felt the last of her fears melting away. This man, this good, brave man, had not only opened his home to her family but his heart as well. During the celebration that followed, with music and dancing and food that blended both their traditions, Lucia overheard one of the neighbor's children mocking her accent, as she gave instructions to the women helping serve the feast. She stiffened, old hurts threatening to resurface when Cole appeared at her side. "They mock my accent," she said quietly, nodding toward the children. Cole gently turned her face toward his, making sure Miguel and Isabella could hear his response. "Then let my children speak like you," he whispered, with pride and courage and the voice of two worlds joined together. 1 year later, Lucia stood on the porch of the main house, watching as Cole taught Miguel to rope a calf in the corral nearby. Isabella sat on the steps, carefully forming Spanish words in a letter to Lucia's sister in Mexico, her tongue caught between her teeth in concentration. Inside, in a cradle Cole had carved by hand, their 2-month-old son Robert Carlos Kincaid slept peacefully. His birth had been celebrated with a fiesta that brought together ranch hands, neighboring families, and even a few folks from Stillwater Creek, who had finally come to accept that love knows no boundaries. As the sun set over the mountains, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and purples, Cole looked up and caught Lucia's eye across the distance. His smile, still as warm as the day they met, sent a familiar flutter through her chest. Later, after the children were asleep, they sat together on the porch swing, Robert nestled against Lucia's shoulder. "Happy?" Cole asked, his arm around her shoulders. "More than I ever dreamed possible," Lucia answered honestly. "When I came to this country, I hoped only for safety, for a chance to give my children a better life. I never expected to find love." "Love finds a way," Cole said, kissing her temple. "Even in the most unlikely places, even when people disapprove, especially then," Cole assured her. "The best things in life are worth fighting for." As if on cue, Robert stirred and made a small sound, opening eyes that somehow managed to blend Lucia's deep brown with Cole's gray. "He will speak both languages," Lucia said with certainty. "He will know both his American father's stories and his Mexican mother's songs. And he'll be richer for it," Cole agreed, "just like we all are." In the years that followed, the Double K Ranch became known throughout the territory not just for its fine cattle and horses, but as a place where differences were celebrated rather than feared. The Kincaid children, eventually 5 in total, grew up switching effortlessly between English and Spanish, proud of their dual heritage. And whenever new settlers arrived in the area, uncertain of their welcome because of different languages or customs, it was said that Cole Kincaid was always the first to ride out and offer a hand in friendship, a lesson he'd learned from loving a woman brave enough to stand tall in a strange land, holding on to her identity even when others mocked what made her unique. For Lucia and Cole had discovered what truly matters, not the language of one's birth, but the language of the heart which, when spoken with love and respect, needs no translation at all.